Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining me. Got a jam-packed show for you guys tonight. Obviously going to be heavy fall camp. Going to talk about Dabo Swinney's interview, some of the players he mentioned, some of the guys that are getting love out of fall camp, some of the bright spots of fall camp. We'll get into all of that and more. But before we get into tonight's show, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Help us out on our road to getting to 6,000 subscribers. Also share this video with anybody and everybody that likes to consume college football content. Share this video with them. And then also we have channel memberships that you can support the channel in that way, or we have a super chat feature you can support in that way as well. The channel memberships, we will be doing some exclusive content for those that decide to support the channel on a monthly basis in that way. So those people are greatly appreciated. But with all of that said, and without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Sorry for the late start today. It's my fault today. So, we're kind of, going back and forth now. But 485 traffic. Those of you that live in Charlotte, But other than that, doing good. I'm excited to kind of break down everything that's been going on in fall camp. Week's been going pretty good. I've got a family reunion to go to tomorrow, so I got to pack for that too. So it's been super busy, but happy to be here and just excited to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a busy week, really busy week, but I'm excited we're here. We've made it to Thursday. It is that time again for the All In Show. I'm excited to dive into the Tigers tonight and talk a little bit about what's coming out from the Clemson Tigers when it comes to fall camp. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and give a shout out to the comment section before we dive into the show tonight. John Sarian, as usual, gets in here first, gets the comment in here first. Thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate your you being in here, being a moderator for us. Tickle Tigers in here as well. Dusty Gold, Jay, Wet Sox, and Arthur Moss are all in here so far tonight. Isaac Smith and Tiger Tom. So thank you guys all for being in here already tonight, guys. Make sure you're getting into the chat section. As you guys know, once we get through our planned portion of the show, at the end of the show, we'll turn it over to you guys for a portion and answer any and all of your questions that you have for us. But Jordan, with that said, we got a few things to get into tonight, so let's go ahead and dive into the show and talk about this fall camp. Dabo had his interview yesterday, I think it was, and he had some updates on the teams as far as guys that are standing out and injuries and all sorts of those things, and we're going to get into all of it tonight. But one of the guys that he mentioned in a big way that was impressing him personally was Jaheim Lawson. He talked at length about Jaheim Lawson and the growth that he's seen over his time, not only at Clemson, but prior to that. Everybody knows that Jaheim Lawson grew up in the Clemson area, spent a lot of time with the Swinney family, was friends with his son and all that kind of stuff. So Dabo's kind of had a unique perspective on Jaheim Lawson due to all of those things. But Jordan, what were your kind of thoughts on Dabo's comments of Jaheim Lawson and kind of where he's at as we stand in week 2 of fall camp?
I mean, if you're a Clemson fan, it's got to be encouraging to hear that. So much of what we talked about last year, the struggles with the defense, came with the fact that you didn't really have a whole lot of functional depth at defensive end. That's why you moved Peter Woods to defensive end. And obviously his health was up and down throughout the season and limited his effectiveness at that position. So, one of the biggest things this offseason we talked about was building that defensive end depth. You bring it and will help. And I think that certainly is going to raise the floor of this group a good bit, inserting him into the starting lineup and gives you a second guy opposite TJ Parker that allows you to put Peter Woods back on the inside, and you have a more complete 4-man front. But you still got, I mean, they can't play every snap. I mean, you got to have guys that can go in and play. And, Jaheim Lawson is a guy in particular that was very much a developmental guy. Dabo talked about it. Coming in, he was a 3-star, athlete, really undersized, 6'2", 210 pounds, I think he said when he came in. He wasn't as naturally built like his brother was. And so, he's been a guy that's just kind of been slow cooking in the system and getting stronger, getting, more experience. And, last year I thought, I think something started to click towards the back end of the last season. I think you saw him in some limited reps, be really explosive. I mean, he's a very, very, very twitchy kid. That's one thing. He's a great athlete. And that's what was so exciting about him when Clemson first signed him. It's like, man, 3, 4 years down the line, like we could see him really be a really, really effective pass rusher. But now he's gotten stronger. He's bigger. He's 260 pounds. You feel better about placing him in a situation where he might have to set the edge and not just be a pass rush specialist. I think it's exciting and really encouraging to hear, because you're going to need him. I don't think there's any world where you rely solely on TJ Parker and Will Helt this year, and you're going to be able to stop the run the way you want to. You're going to have to be able to plug in guys, because God forbid an injury happens. You need to be able to play some functional, get some functional snaps from some other guys. So Jaheim Lawson continuing to take that next step in his development is really, really exciting. I think we're going to see a lot more from him this year, and Dabo seemed to confirm it. Like, when you listen to Dabo speak, you kind of have to parse through some of the things he says, because he's going to be very complimentary about a lot of guys. But you can kind of tell the difference in his tone and the length at which he speaks about certain players that makes you like, okay, they're really seeing something here. And all the reports have been that Jaheim Lawson has been one of the more consistent guys in camp. And that is extremely exciting, because if you have a starting caliber player coming off the bench, that changes the complexion of the room, and it takes some of the pressure off your actual starters. It gives more opportunities for them to kind of take a breather. You can rotate guys in and stay fresh. And it's also just good for the competition. You got younger guys in that room that are also going to be, vying for playing time. Darian Mayo was mentioned. Ari Watford coming off a torn ACL. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to play, but he's going to practice. We're going to see him a good bit. So, like, I think all those things you have to keep in mind, and why, one of the biggest things for Clemson's defensive end room is having a guy like Jaheim Lawson take that next step and become a starting caliber football player.
Yeah, absolutely, Jordan. And this is extremely encouraging from a depth standpoint, because entering fall camp, let's be honest, one of the, not as glaring questions, but one of the questions entering fall camp for Clemson was the depth at that defensive line position. We felt really good about the first two guys that are going to run out there, in TJ Parker and Will Helt, and that's all great. But again, like you mentioned earlier, you're one injury away from being in the exact same position you were in last year, right? So with the development of these guys behind TJ Parker and Will Helt, specifically Jaheim Lawson, is music to the ears of Clemson fans. And this is a guy, as you mentioned, that's been in the crock pot. He's been brewing for a long time. He's put on 50 pounds since he's been at Clemson. That just speaks to the grind that this guy's been on since he came to campus. And he's looking to really transform himself this season into an every down defensive end, and not just a pass rush specialist. And that's going to be the step that we are looking for Jaheim Lawson to take this year, and we'll see how he performs on the field. Fall camp, it seems that the returns from fall camp are extremely promising, and that he's having one of the better fall camps out of all the guys, and that's extremely encouraging, and couldn't happen to a better guy. Really excited about him, and you kind of saw him last year, especially towards the end of the season. He started to kind of come into his own a little bit. You could see the growth and the development from the start of 2024 to the end of the season, and just kind of the steps that he took forward. Obviously, he had more growth to do, and that sounds like that's what's happened this offseason. So I'm really excited about Jaheim Lawson. I'm really excited about the rest of the guys in that room. We heard from Cade Denhoff. The media talked to him a little bit. He's looking better. So we'll see what kind of steps he can take forward. And then, Darian Mayo, obviously you mentioned him. What kind of role is he going to kind of round out into? But, as you mentioned, this is a maybe not as talked about as other positions, but this is an extremely big deal for this Clemson Tigers, and how how good this defense can be this year with that quality depth developing behind your starters at the defensive end position.
Yeah, I mean, and you always want to root for a guy that, a legacy kid. Like it always, there's always that extra, tug at the heartstrings, like from a sentimental standpoint, when, you have guys that have been Clemson family basically their entire lives. I mean, Jaheim, growing up in the Clemson area, and obviously his brother leaving the legacy he did, and all the connections he has. It just, you want him to succeed, and it's exciting, because if you get the best version of Jaheim Lawson this year, that changes a lot for the complexion of this defense, and it makes everything else so much easier on the staff, on the defense as a whole. If you can get some really high level snaps, and it doesn't, you don't need him to play like 40 snaps a game. I mean, if he can give you like 20 snaps every game of quality reps, I mean, that takes so much pressure off of Will Helt, off of TJ Parker, and the interior guys. So, I mean, it says a lot, and it could say a lot if we do indeed get that version of Jaheim Lawson this year. Yeah.
Also, just to kind of put a bow on this, shout out to Jaheim Lawson, because what he's doing at Clemson is not easy. You mentioned that he's a legacy Clemson guy, and coming in to a place where your brother left the legacy that he did, and playing the same position as him, that's not easy, man. No. And it wasn't like he was an instant success, right? Some of the things that came easy to Shaq Lawson doesn't come easy to Jaheim Lawson, right? So he's really had to grind and work maybe a little bit more than Shaq Lawson ever did at Clemson. So it's really refreshing, as you mentioned, to see Jaheim Lawson he's kind of coming into his own now, and I think this is going to be a really big season for him, and I'm excited to see what he looks like on the field for the Tigers in 2025.
100%. It's going to be fun to watch.
With that said, guys, while you're preparing for the 2025 season, make sure you're heading over to Amazon, getting all your stuff. That's the easiest way to get your game day gear, all your stuff like that. And while you're checking out on Amazon, make sure you're using the Voice of College Football link. And I'm going to let Mark Rogers tell you a little bit more about that. We'll be right back after a word from our very own Mark Rogers.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
All right, guys, you heard Mark there. Make sure you're going and using that Amazon link. Again, like he said, doesn't change your shopping experience at all. It's not going to cost you any more money. It's just simply a way for the Voice of College Football to get a little kickback on what you're already going to purchase on Amazon anyway. So your help with that would be greatly appreciated. All right, continuing right along on this fall camp talk, Jordan, another position group that has a bit of a question mark when it comes to the depth, much like defensive end that we just got finished talking about. We think we know about those first couple guys running out there at cornerback, but what is it going to look like? What does the pecking order look like behind those guys? And Dabo mentioned a couple of them, depth pieces, guys that are going to rotate in and probably play, a good amount of snaps this season in the secondary. And he mentioned a couple of those guys that are, look like they may be taking the next step. He mentioned, Brandon Strozier, Corey Gibson. Those guys are really starting to flash in fall camp, starting to look like they're rounding the corner and taking that next step in their abilities when it comes to on the field play. So, Jordan, your thoughts about the secondary depth and just hearing Dabo talk about these guys that are going to be depth pieces this season for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like this is another position where, you feel really good about the guys that are going to be running out there first. Like, I mean, corner, of course. I mean, Avion Terrell projected to be a first-round caliber cornerback. Ashton Hampton, as a true freshman, showed himself to be one of the better young defensive backs in the country. I think one of the things that was really, really interesting about this group and kind of frustrating about this group last year in some respects was that you just didn't have guys available at different times. And so it felt like there was a lot of, I mean, of course, Avion Terrell and Ashton Hampton were really, really consistent, but you had Shelton Lewis in and out of the lineup with injury. At safety, you were kind of rotating guys in and out. Khalil Barnes was moving around from nickel to safety. And Ricardo Jones dealt with injury. You didn't get to see him, kind of play more than we thought he might have been able to. Kylan Griffin was fairly steady, but you don't really have a lot. And now you're trying to replace a guy like RJ Mickens, who was a really, really high level starter for you for several years. And so now we're kind of in a transitional period, I think, for this group, one that could end up being really, really good this year. But there's just a lot we don't know about for the guys behind them. So like at corner, you mentioned Brandon Strozier and Corey Gibson. These are guys that have played very little up to this point in their career. Corey Gibson, for most reasons, just being hurt. He just hasn't been able to get on the field. And Brandon Strozier, I mean, to his credit, he's been behind some really talented football players in his career, but he had a lot of developing to do. And there was a reason why he wasn't getting more snaps. So you're going to need them to play this year. There's no hiding them, and they were both really talented football players coming out. Corey Gibson and Brandon Strozier, 4-star caliber recruits. So I mean, you have to get more from them. Jaden Lucas is a guy that you think can play starting caliber snaps for you, but his availability has been a question, and he's dinged up, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll see. Hopefully, it doesn't seem to be long term, but just another example of him not being able to develop that consistency. So getting these guys up to speed, especially Gibson and Strozier, is going to be important. And if you can move Sheldon Lewis around, and because I think he can serve different roles. I mean, he played on the outside as a true freshman and had some really, really nice moments as a true freshman. And he's shown he can play that nickel role, which I think probably fits his body type a little bit more. But he's got to be available. So. But the comments that Dabo made about Strozier and Gibson in particular were encouraging. We won't really know until we see them, but that's another thing I'm keeping an eye on as we kind of get closer and closer to the opener.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be an important thing to keep your eye on if you're a Clemson fan, for sure. The secondary is one of those positions where again, like any position on the field, you're one injury away from being in a not so great position. So these depth pieces are more important than I think people give them credit for. These guys are super important to the roster. They're going to have to come in. They're going to have to play snaps, as you mentioned this year. There is no hiding these guys anymore. There is no let these guys sit on the sideline and keep developing and that kind of things. These guys are going to play big snaps this season. So it's good to hear that they are, at least in fall camp, they're stepping up and they're playing with intensity. They're playing with, good technique, and they look like they've taken that next step in their career as far as their development, because Clemson is definitely going to have to lean on them. You mentioned Ashton Hampton and Avion Terrell. That's great. But again, much like the defensive ends, they're not going to be out there every snap of every game. You got to rotate guys in. You got to keep guys fresh. And Brandon Strozier and Corian Gibson are going to be a big piece of that defense this year when it comes to the rotation. So it's really good to hear Dabo talk about them in a positive way. And again, we'll see how they look. You mentioned how highly touted these guys were coming out of high school, and they've had a couple years now. So now's your time. You got to start taking a bigger role when it comes to this defense. So I'm excited for them and excited for this entire secondary and to see kind of how they look in this new look defense with Tom Allen and how good this front seven I think is going to be. So they're going to be a significant piece of that.
100%. And I think the biggest stock up I would say right now, just based off of Dabo's comments, based off of the reports, and kind of what we've been piecing together since the spring, Ronan Hannafin has a legit chance to be a starter. It seems like he's just continued to come along at safety. I think you're going to see him a lot this year, and I think he's going to be able to make some plays. I've talked about him, and you and I both talked about him a good bit. I mean, when he was coming out of high school, I liked his linebacker tape more than I did his receiver tape. Like he was like the instinctiveness, the willingness to tackle, the physicality. He's a headhunter. He just loves to hit. I mean, I think you got a couple of guys like that in that safety room, but I think the transition to safety has just been natural for him. I mean, a lot of the principles that made him a good linebacker coming out of high school are going to make him a good safety, and he has the athleticism, the body type, where you feel comfortable that you can ask him to cover if you need him to. I think he's potentially a starting level player for you, and I can't wait to see him because it makes so much sense if he is the guy we think he can be, and it would be a massive boost to this defense. It allows you to be more multiple with how you move guys around on the back end too. If you can trust him to be back there. And then it takes less pressure off. Kylan Griffin, who's been here a while, takes less pressure off Khalil Barnes, takes less pressure off of Ricardo Jones. Like if you have that depth, and if he can give you starting caliber reps for you, that's massive.
Yeah, I mean, and you heard Dabo say that he's a potential starter this year for this Clemson Tiger defense, and that should make Clemson fans excited. And we even saw talking about Ronan Hannafin, like you saw him some last year, and that was a Ronan Hannafin that kind of got thrown into the safety room with no offseason and no fundamentals and no real install on the defensive side of the ball. He was fresh out of the wide receiver room and just kind of got thrown over to that side of the ball. And he was just kind of relying on, athleticism and instincts last year. Well, now this year he's had a whole year of, a whole offseason of install and being around Tom Allen and taking in the new defense and all that kind of stuff. And we know what he can do physically. You mentioned, his headhunter kind of mentality and playing downhill and a really physical guy. So I can't wait to see kind of what he evolves into as this season goes on. Dabo seems really excited about his growth this offseason and how he could impact that safety room.
100%. And he is just like I said, it's just one of those guys that it makes too much sense. I think just for him, I think his role in this defense, I think it will evolve, but I think he fits what Tom Allen wants out of his safeties, and I think he's a guy that has a lot of potential, and I think he's still only scratching the surface. So if he's if they feel good enough about him to potentially start him now, just imagine where he'll be maybe a year from now, even towards the end of this season. What he might be playing like. So really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot of good things coming out about the secondary. When it comes to fall camp, Dabo seems really excited about a few of these guys. Obviously we've mentioned a few of them here. There's others that, have been talked about out of fall camp. But that's just highlighting a few guys in week 2 of fall camp that are standing out. But with that said, if you want any more articles, videos, reminders about live shows, forums, anything like that, go check out the new website, the Voice of College Football website, vocfb.com. That's vocfb.com. We have a new website, the one-stop shop for all things Voice of College Football. You have articles on there. You have the show schedules for the various live shows every single day. And then forums and all sorts of stuff that you can get into over there. Encourage you guys to go check it out, make an account. Let us know what you think of the website. And we look forward to seeing you guys over there. All right, Jordan, continuing right along with fall camp intel, week 2 of fall camp for the Clemson Tigers. And talking about a guy that we brought in via the transfer portal. Yes, that's right, everybody. You heard me correctly. Clemson brought in players via the transfer portal this offseason. But if you're on this channel, you already know that. Jeremiah Alexander, no stranger to Clemson, by the way, Jordan. Heavily recruited by Dabo Swinney, heavily recruited by the Clemson Tigers. Obviously, we lost out on that recruiting battle to Alabama. And then, he goes there, doesn't get on the field, doesn't see very much playing time, and transfers into Clemson this spring. And since he has been on campus, he has been raved about by numerous coaches. Ben Boulware said he's the hardest working guy he's ever seen, which coming from that guy is a very high compliment because we all know how insane Ben Boulware is when it comes to preparation and just being like a maniac when it comes to the weight room and on the field. So, Jordan, as we sit here week 2 of fall camp, what is Jeremiah Alexander's role going to be for these Clemson Tigers? He's gotten high praise from Dabo. He's gotten high praise from his position coach in Ben Boulware. Tom Allen has talked about, like, pretty much every coach has mentioned Jeremiah Alexander. So what is his role? What can Clemson fans expect from him this season? And how has he just kind of impacted this Clemson roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think just Jeremiah Alexander was a perfect addition, I think, for this linebacker group. I think he brings a lot of versatility. I think they are really excited to see how he grows into the role as that tiger position in Tom Allen's defense, that sort of hybrid linebacker role, where you're not going to ask him to cover wide receivers or anything like that. I mean, I don't think he's going to be like Isaiah Simmons level of freak show, but I think he's going to offer a lot of versatility as an off-ball linebacker who can also rush the passer. I think you'll see him get pass rush snaps. I think you can plug him in a lot of different ways, and I think that's really exciting. And just the returns early have been really, really good. He's had a really, really good camp. He's been one of the best players, I would say, based off of what's been reported, what I've been fed. I think that he's going to be a guy that I don't necessarily think he's going to be like a starter per se, like in the most literal sense of the word, but I think he can give you starting caliber reps. And I think you need that because you just don't really know what you're going to get out of the guys behind, Sammy Brown, Wade Woodaz. Kobe McLeod is coming back from a torn ACL. I mean, D. Creighton is a guy that he played a little bit last season, but you don't really know if he's going to take that next step or not. And then you got some really young guys, the younger the Drew Woodaz and CJ Kuba Taylor and those guys where you're still kind of, those are guys that are going to have to come along a little bit more slowly. They're not, and so if you have a guy like Jeremiah Alexander, who has 2 years of eligibility, by the way, so hey, who knows? If you can get him for 2 years, I think that's awesome. I think that's meant all the world. He didn't get as much fanfare as the addition of Will Helt, but I think he's going to have the same level of impact on the depth and the comfort level that I think the defense and the defensive staff will have in terms of how much they can play certain guys. And I think that's the most exciting thing. And I think he's going to be a really productive player in this role, because I think he offers a little bit of a different skill set than anybody else in that room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this guy has had high praise since he walked onto campus this spring. And, it wasn't like Clemson was starting at square one with Jeremiah Alexander. A lot of the coaching staff already was very familiar with him before he got to Clemson, just due to the recruiting process and the relationships built there. But, I mean, I'm excited for him, man. I cannot wait with the amount of, praise that he has gotten for his work ethic and just that kind of stuff, being roommates with Peter Woods and, some of those early morning workouts that he likes to do, rubbing off on Peter Woods. And obviously you see the specimen that Peter Woods walked into fall camp as, so he's been an influence already, not just on, the younger guys on this team, but some of the veteran guys on this team with just how he goes about preparing for the game and just working to get better each and every day. And that's the type of guys that you really want on your team. So I couldn't pick a better guy as far as the transfer portal goes to walk into Clemson and just, put his hard hat on, keep his head down, work. And I think he is going to certainly carve out a role in this roster for the 2025 season. And I can't wait to see what it looks like.
100%. And, John makes a good point. With Jeremiah, like, outsiders will be like, man, they think this transfer from Alabama that didn't really play all that much is going to be a starter or a starting caliber player for them. Like, that's, I don't know, man. But, I do think there is a lot to kind of his position at Alabama. I mean, it did feel like they didn't really know what to do with him, which is, in that defense, especially when Kalen DeBoer got there and all the changes happened, he was just kind of there. Weren't really sure how to use him, because he's not quite big enough to be a every down pass rusher in the college game. He's not a guy that has spent a lot of time as an off-ball linebacker to where you feel comfortable playing him a bunch. But I think he can do both. A little bit of both, and I think they just didn't have a role for him, and they also had some just really talented football players. I mean, he wasn't going to play over like Jahad Campbell, who Clemson had committed at one point. I don't want to talk about that. But like I think in this Tom Allen defense, I think it's given him a lot more freedom. I think he's going to be able to play a little bit more to himself, because he is kind of a tweener body type. But he's really transformed his body. He's just been one of the most consistent players on the team. And consistency, as we've kind of seen just over the years in this program, when a player is constantly being talked about and the consistent showing up every day and the production is there, you're going to see it on the field more often than not. And I really do think that Jeremiah Alexander has raised the floor for this group in a big way. And I'm excited to see him, because I think he's going to be productive for this team.
Yeah. I mean, when you have a guy like Jeremiah Alexander and how he works and how he prepares and all the stuff you mentioned as a defensive coordinator, a guy like that forces you to find a role for him. He forces you to find somewhere to put him on the field and allow him to produce. And Tom Allen, I think, is the perfect defensive coordinator to marry up with a player like Jeremiah Alexander. I think he will find a role for him in this defense this year.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, make sure you're connecting with the Voice of College Football on all our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're at on social media. Just search up VOCFB and you will find us there. Give us a follow, and we would love to see you over there on all our socials. And then with that said, make sure you're following Jordan. Go search him out over there on X. Jobo0209 is his X handle. He's a great follow over there. Lots of stuff that he posts, lots of information. And then my X handle as well, TPC_CFB. Make sure you're following us over on X.
Yep. Go give us a follow.
All right, Jordan, it can't be all great news out of fall camp. Obviously, when you're on the field and you're having competitive reps and you're going full contact with pads and all that kind of stuff, there is going to be injuries, whether they be significant or insignificant. There have been injuries for the Tigers in these 2 short weeks of fall camp. Obviously, Dabo talked a little bit about it, in his presser. And unfortunately for Jarvis Green, he's one of those unfortunate guys that got pretty much a season-ending injury. He'll be out for majority of the season. Dabo did say that he would have a chance to come back towards the end of the season, but that they may just try to, depending on where the running back room situation is at that point, they may just try to hold him and get a medical red shirt for him and get this entire year back for him. So unfortunate news for Jarvis Green. You hate to hear that about any guy, regardless of whether they were, supposed to start or be a depth guy or whatever. The amount of work that these guys put in the offseason, you hate to see it come to such a quick end in fall camp.
Yeah, I hate it for him. I mean, and especially a guy like Jarvis who has wanted to be a Clemson Tiger, and he fought really hard, worked really hard to get the offer. I remember the social media campaign. It felt like from the fan base at times because they were wondering why he didn't have an offer. So he's one of those homegrown kids that you can't help but root for. He's kind of has a chip on his shoulder. He wasn't the most highly recruited, really productive at Dutch Fork, but just didn't get the love from recruiting sites. And so I think he's kind of been just waiting his turn, biding his time. He's been working really, really hard, but injuries have cropped up at different points in his career, and now this one is going to be the biggest setback for him. And I think the good thing is that because he's if you can get this year back, it does mean he does still have a good amount of his eligibility left. Hey, and listen, shout out to College Football Clemson over on Instagram. He's a good follow. Gotten to know him. He pointed out a stat to me today that Jarvis. It's kind of obvious, but Jarvis Green has more playoff touchdowns than Will Shipley and Phil Mott. So there's that. So I think you always hate it for him. You didn't really expect him to come in and be one of the top guys in the room this season, but you do need that depth, and with Peyton Straco also out, who we mentioned. You want to have as many guys available as possible, especially when you have a room that has that doesn't have a proven commodity yet, as high as we are on Adam Randall potentially being that guy, and Gideon Davidson as a true freshman being really productive for you. David Izumame, and you still have Keith Adams Jr. You have guys that you feel like can give you some quality play, but you just you haven't seen it. It's the biggest question mark on the team. You literally have no proven commodities there. You want to have as many guys available when you're in a situation like that. So hate it for Jarvis. He's worked extremely hard, but this is it's another setback for him.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Super unfortunate. Speedy recovery for him. But outside of that, it doesn't seem that Clemson has any real significant injuries. Obviously, a couple offensive linemen missed a practice. Peter Woods was out sick. didn't feel well. So they held him from practice, didn't want anybody else getting sick or spreading it to anybody. But it sounds like from an injury standpoint, Clemson's in a pretty good situation. A couple knick-knack injuries here or there. And, that's to be expected. These guys ain't been in full pads in quite some time. So anytime, if you've ever played football, once you get back into pads, you get little knick-knack injuries here and there that, they want to hold guys for or put them a no contact jersey or something like that. But Jarvis Green being that only guy that kind of sustained a significant injury. So fairly good news on the injury front for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got guys that are, like you said, that are dealing with injuries. I mentioned Jaden Lucas earlier. Khalil Barnes was in a yellow jersey.
I mean, talking about Jaden Lucas, man, like what? Man, dude, like I hate it for him. It just seems like he's no matter what, he just cannot stay healthy. And I know he's not out for an extended period of time, but it's just like it's always Jaden Lucas, man. It's just I hate it for him because I think he's a really good player, and I think he could be a big part of this defense if he could ever get any sort of luck in the injury department. I think people would change their minds about how they view Jaden Lucas if he could get any luck in the injury department.
Yeah, with the 100%. I mean, and I do think like the injuries have built up for him over the course of his career. I mean, I don't like. I think it's robbed him maybe a little bit of what made him such a highly touted player coming out of high school. But he was a 5-star borderline coming out of Malden. I don't know why I could not think of the name. So like I think like he's another homegrown guy and one of the top players in the state. Like you always root for those guys, and for Clemson, really for both in-state schools, like those homegrown guys that were big time recruits, they hit at a really high rate. So it just you always hate it when a guy like Lucas is who chose to stay home and over when he could have gone pretty much anywhere. He was one of the he was highly recruited by everybody, where he just hasn't been able to stay on the field for an extended period of time. So hate it for him. But like you said, Clemson largely is in a really, really good spot, and it's not long term for Lucas, but you want him to be able to go through fall camp without any sort of setbacks and missing time. You want him to get reps because you're going to need him. I mean, he's the senior guy in the room now, pretty much. Yeah. Dabo talked about Miles Oliver, who has played basically nothing in his career. He's been here for like 4 years now. You think of the guys in that cornerback room that just have not, gotten that opportunity. The guys deeper in the safety room, like Kylan Webb. We don't ever talk about Kylan Webb. He just hasn't been able to get that opportunity to play on the field. I guess that's one thing that you potentially could get from guys missing time here and there is, maybe that is more reps for the guys deeper in the depth chart, but you want to have everybody healthy. I
don't mind that in spring. When some of your top guys are out, I think that's almost a good thing in spring sometimes, which is why the coaches always do those off-season surgeries right there at spring, because they're like, these veteran guys, they don't really need spring, right? Let's get these young guys in here and get them into, a ton of reps, but closer to, and then, with Jaden Lucas at some point, like it's got to play on your psyche, man, with the amount of injuries that you've had. At what point are you comfortable to go out there and really cut loose and play like you can play, when you're constantly, this injury, that injury, over and over again, at a certain point, I think it messes with your psyche, and you can't really cut loose on the field because you're constantly worried about injury.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we're going to, we hope that Clemson just continues as far as, the luck they've had so far you hope that continues. I mean, hell, the team you just that you're about to play on August 30th had a kind of a scare the other day with Garrett Nussmeier. So it just anything can happen. All it takes is one rep, one play, and your season, the outlook on your season changes. So I'm knocking on wood really loud.
Absolutely. All it takes is planting your foot and something going wrong, and doesn't even have to be a contact injury. Most of these season-ending knee injuries are non-contact most of the time. So I'm with you. Let's knock on wood. Let's keep Clemson in the green when it comes to the injury updates. Hopefully next week we don't have any injuries to talk about. And again, speedy recovery to Jarvis Green. Hope he gets back as quick as possible and can be better than ever when he gets back.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, make sure you're searching us on all your favorite audio streaming platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. Search Clemson Live. You will find all of our content there. This exact episode that you're listening to right now will be over there on those platforms shortly. So just search Clemson Live. All of our long form content's over there. All of our video content is over there as well. So whenever you like to listen to your podcast, whether you're on a run, on a long drive, search Clemson Live. Give us a follow over there. Rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff, and that would be greatly appreciated. And then for the YouTube channel, guys, as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you have not already, we got 43 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for being here, by the way. If you could, just simply click that like button for us. Doesn't cost you anything, only takes you a second, and it really helps out the channel and helps these live videos for us. And then if you like what you see here, consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do the All-In Show right here, 7 p.m. every Thursday. Year round, and we will also be doing post-game live reaction videos like we have for the past 3 seasons immediately following every single Clemson game this season. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider sticking around with us. You do not have to be a Clemson fan to be here. We welcome all fan bases. We got several different fan bases represented within our comment section. So we would love to have you, and we would love to be your one-stop shop for all things Clemson Tigers. And with that said, Jordan, this might be the fastest we've ever gotten through our planned portion of the show. We kind of blew through our topics there, which is not a bad thing. Just gives us time to chop it up with the comment section. So without further ado, let's see what the people are talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad because we felt like we definitely needed to abbreviate it tonight. I got a pack because I'm going to be hitting the road tomorrow. So this works out perfectly anyway. But yeah, that's got to be a record. We usually don't get through it that fast. So
less than an hour? I don't think we've ever gotten through our planned portion in less than an hour.
Yeah, I can't think of one unless we flat out we're on a big time crunch. All right. Well, let's see what you guys are talking about. And of course, if you want to make sure that your comment is read, your question is read, the best way to do that is the super chat feature, but we try to hit as many people as possible. And consider joining the channel because we also want to show love to our channel members as well. And that's another great way to get a little bit of preferential treatment, I guess, in terms of what we answer. I'll start with our one of our first channel member, David Lowry. Thank you so much for continuing to contribute to the Voice of College Football Clemson channel and the All In Show. He asked about Keith Adams stepping up. You're going to need him, especially. I think he has utility in some short yardage situations. I don't know if he's going to be like the one of the top guys, but I think like his strength and the sheer strength in his legs and just his ability to run people over. I think that's very useful in goal line situations. I think Adam Randall can do that as well. Of course, being 6'2", 230. He gives you a lot there. But I think if you want to spell him, I think Keith Adams, and you want a short yardage back, I think Keith Adams is the perfect guy for that role, and I think you could see him a little bit in some certain situations, and I think you'll need him. Hopefully he stays healthy, and he'll have some utility in those situations, especially, I think. Yeah, Dylan brings up a great point. He said Dabo praised Gavin Blanchard on the offensive line. Have y'all seen anything out of him? Also mentioned Miles Oliver on defense. Yeah, Gavin Blanchard is a guy that it didn't actually surprise me that Dabo mentioned Gavin Blanchard, because our guy Grayson Mann mentioned it in our interview with him last week. If you guys haven't checked that out, those of you that missed that, go back and watch that. That was great. And I really think you guys should watch it. You got a lot of insight from Grayson there. And Gavin Blanchard was a guy that he mentioned just really popped to him that nobody was talking about. So gotten corroboration from two different sources at two different times, independent of each other. I think that says a lot. But yeah, he's a guy that I think he's kind of been flown under the radar in terms of, the guys that we talk about in this incoming freshman class, that has just been really steady and has shown up, a better football player than maybe even the staff thought he was. Like, he was a late add, if you flipping him from UCF, and you didn't really know what you were going to get out of him. I watched him a little bit when he first, made his commitment. And, I thought I saw a good football player, but I just wondered how much he was going to come in and how ready he was going to be, early on. And it seems like the staff has been pleasantly surprised with him, and they think he's going to be a good football player down the line. So that's really exciting. Just another example of the evaluations from your star-studded offensive line coach, potentially hitting for you. And that's not a guy that's a blue chipper, top 100 type player that Clemson has gotten in this current recruiting class. Like he was a 3-star that, he had some good offers, but he was kind of under the radar. He wasn't a guy getting a ton of fanfare or buzz, and he might end up being a guy that is a really good football player for you down the line. Obviously I don't expect him to work his way into the rotation this year necessarily, barring some injuries, but you got to feel good that you have some guys already that you feel good about, when you have so many guys potentially leaving after this year. And we did touch on Miles Oliver, who Dabo was complimentary of. So he flashes all the time, but it's just about he's never healthy, so you don't get to see him. So he reminds you why he was recruited, but you're like, well, when is he going to be? Like, when is he going to have a season where he's available and we can play him? And he just hasn't had that. Ruby says, I wonder how the running back room is taking the senior receiver taking their spot. I mean, I don't think there's any sort of tension there. I mean, I think the CJ has done a good job with this group. And listen, this is not some regular wide receiver like taking the RB1 spot. I mean, this is a guy that's 6'2", 230 pounds and runs a 4.4. Like, I mean, he's very much offers a different look and a different body type and a really high level athletic profile at the running back position. So it's not just a matter of they just inserted a guy that can't play the position. They have a guy that they feel really, really good about. And Adam has played running back at different points in his football career, so he's not completely new to the position. And this is an opportunity for him to get the ball in his hands. That was the biggest thing for him. I mean, when he got the ball in his hands when he was playing receiver, I mean, he showed explosiveness, and obviously he had special teams versatility. And his return was the biggest, was the reason you were able to win the ACC championship game. So you just look at him physically and you see him move you're like, why is this guy not more productive throughout his career? And getting open was a problem. Just getting him the football in different ways. They just weren't able to do that. I think running back is the perfect marriage of what he's done in his development as a wide receiver, because now he can do that part of it, of being a running back. He can be a receiver, but now he can just, he doesn't have to work to get open. He can just get the ball in his hands and do what he's really naturally gifted at, and that's making plays with the ball in his hands. So. I think it's a thing that works really well, and plus there wasn't really a spot to be taken. There was nobody in that room that was just a bona fide lock to be the number one back, and then Adam Randall came in and took their spot. Like, if Adam Randall doesn't make that move, we're still having a running back competition. So that doesn't really it hasn't really changed anything for the guys in that room. Right? So.
Also, I mean, all you got to do is compete and beat them out for the RB1 spot. Nobody handed it to Adam Randall. And, the other thing is, I think CJ Spiller does a good job every time he talks to the media. He kind of talks about how he goes about this kind of stuff in his room. And he's very deliberate when it comes to, no selfishness in the room, being a team guy first. Because, running back's one of those positions, much like quarterback, where one guy's going to roll out on the field majority of the time. Yeah, do you have a 2 running back set every now and then? But for the most part, there's one guy running out there. So, keep your head down, compete, and don't let the senior wide receiver come over and take the RB1 spot. They're going to play the best player. They're not going to be loyal to Adam Randall just because he moved from, receiver to running back.
Yep. And, as high as I am on Gideon Davidson, I mean, if they don't feel comfortable with him, like, especially in pass protection, he's not going to see the field. So that's, he's not going to see the field as much as the senior guy.
Yeah. Last thing you want is your quarterback getting murdered in the backfield. Because your running back can't pick up pass pro. Yeah,
we've had some examples of that I don't want to.
We do not want to repeat.
Yeah. Isaac says, how much eligibility does Lucas have left? I don't quote me on this, but I want to say he has 2. He has this year and next year.
Yeah,
if he wants it. I feel pretty confident that's the case. I think he has 2 years. Let's see. Dylan also asked about the 110 Society. Yeah, that's been a recent, kind of development. They've kind of folded the 110 Society back into IPTE, and they're really going to lean heavily into their Clemson Ventures initiative, along with IPTE. And that's going to be kind of the player compensation apparatus moving forward. They're kind of, they're sunsetting it. So, like, the deals that the players had with 110 Society, they're not just like dissolved or anything like that. They're like, that's all grandfathered in, but they are slowly going to gradually transition into the Clemson Ventures phase. So that's what they're doing.
There's a good interview if you guys kind of want to dive deep into kind of that decision on sunsetting the 110 Society, and Graham Neff did an interview with the media and talked in depth about kind of Clemson's approach with the new, house settlement and how they're approaching things with Clemson Ventures and doing NIL deals from a corporate standpoint, and that's kind of speaks more to what Clemson Ventures has been doing. Instead of 100% fan funded NIL type stuff. They're going to more corporate business deals, that kind of stuff when it comes to the NIL, and that'll be done through Clemson Ventures and not the 110 Society. So
and I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you can't demand the common fan to shoulder the load in terms of player compensation,
I mean, they already shoulder the load for so much. I mean. Yeah. They shoulder the load when it comes to paying for these scholarships. They shoulder the load when it comes to building these new facilities. They shoulder the load when it comes to, literally everything. So it's time for these universities to start ponying up some money. And the 20, I think Graham Neff said it was be $26 million. That's going to be that it's going to be for this new House settlement. It's going to be $26 million against the Clemson athletic department every single year. So that's a big expense. But again, he laid out a really good plan that I feel good about how they look to, make money when it comes to the corporate world and using their stadiums and facilities for different venues to generate funds. And obviously the alcohol sales are going to generate some funds as well. So I think they got a good plan. And he did leave the door open that, if everything completely fell apart and it was back to just collectives, that they would, they have talked about and would bring the 110 Society back if the landscape shifted in a way where that made sense.
Yeah. So they haven't completely done away with it in terms of the they could, like you said, they could bring it back if they needed to, but because you got to stay fluid, and because this whole situation is fluid. But as things stand right now, it just makes a lot more sense to kind of move in that direction, because I think it's better for the fans, and I think it's better for the university in terms of you'll have a more reliable stream of where the money's coming from, when the money's coming, and who you're getting it from, and it's a lot more. It'll be easier to be more transparent, when it comes to player negotiations, all that stuff, because that is a thing now. So I do think it's better for Clemson in the short term right now. And we'll see if the landscape changes to where it makes more sense to go back. But I think the 110 Society served its purpose in a big way, and they did a really good job.
Yeah, the 110 Society is the reason that this roster is what it is right now.
Yes.
So shout out to the 110 Society and all the fans that contributed, their hard-earned money to the 110 Society.
This roster ain't cheap, man.
It ain't cheap. It is not cheap.
No.
Best believe.
All right.
I'm sure they stayed because they love Clemson, but it came at a price as well.
It came at a price. Yes.
No mistake about it. We didn't get no discount.
Guys talking about recruiting rankings. Isaac Smith mentions Texas Tech. Yeah, they've been. Texas Tech, they might be the most loaded team in college football right now, just in terms of what the sheer dollar figures they're throwing around. Even their big brother Texas is not throwing out that level of cash.
Do they have that much money? Like what?
They've always had that much money. I think they just woke up one day and they're like, wait a minute, we're rich.
We can buy players?
Yeah.
Like Texas Tech, where you been?
Why are we trying to build? Why are we trying to get all these developmental guys and build through and build the way we always have when we can just buy the top players
now? Like they're a little late to the party though. Like it's almost like they just figured it out this year that they can pay players to come play football.
Hey,
I don't know.
I mean, maybe
somebody didn't tell them. I don't know.
They did it in spots. I mean, the Micah Hudson recruitment was but now they just realized, wait, we can do that for more than one player. We can do that
we could just buy a roster. Like, if you want to, you can. Yeah.
And so they're doing that. They the Ladarius Guyton, the number one player, I think, in the 2027 class as it stands right now, committed today at offensive tackle. I mean, he wasn't a guy Clemson was in for, so I don't not too worried about that. But it just in terms of the landscape of college football, it says a lot.
That money hits different in Texas, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, it does. Wet Sox asking about final word on Nuss. From what I can tell, it was not a big deal.
Seems like a whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah. I think they did a precautionary MRI. He when he suffered the injury and it came back negative, they think he's, they just kind of held him out of practice for the rest of the day. But he's going to be good. I'm pretty sure. So not too worried about that.
Yeah, no, he'll be fine.
Joe with an interesting question. This is one that gets brought up a lot, and I think Clemson, different fans will give you different answers here. But who's your next biggest rival from South Carolina? There's a lot of ways you can look at it. You can look at it from how many times I've played them, in terms of historical significance, the amount of big time games, and I think different generations of Clemson fans will give you different answers. I think older crowds will probably mention the Georgia schools. Most will probably say Georgia. A lot of Clemson and Georgia used to be a yearly rivalry, and that was the hatred, the fervor for that game was almost as big as it was for South Carolina. A lot of years. So some people will say Georgia. Others, especially older, might say NC State. The Textile Bowl has been one of the most played rivalries. Georgia Tech. I think younger fans will probably say like Florida State. That's been a rivalry that's been Clemson's youngest, I would say, rivalry. Kind of really picked up. The beginnings where the seeds were planted in the late '80s. And when Deion Sanders was there, the fumble Ruski, Danny Ford in his final year coming back to Tallahassee and getting revenge, that kind of started it. And then Florida State coming into the ACC. But Florida State dominated in the early portions of that era. And then when Tommy Bowden became the head coach at Clemson in the Bowden Bowl, I think that was when it really started to grow into a game that Clemson fans really looked forward to every year. And it became a kind of a big deal. I think for me personally, I've kind of gone back and forth over the years. I would have given you a different answer maybe 10 years ago. But I kind of lean towards Florida State or Georgia. Just in terms of, I think in terms of significance, I think beating those two are bigger deals than anything else, than any other team. I think if there's one team I hate losing to the most, other than South Carolina, it's NC State. But that's for personal reasons. I grew up in the state of North Carolina. Have NC State, family members. Been around State fans my whole life. It's a different thing. And there are some Clemson fans that feel that way too. I hate losing to NC State. Hate it. That is, if I could, other than South Carolina, if I could guarantee one team we don't lose to, it's NC State. Cannot stand them. So I think that's Clemson they have a unique relationship in terms of their rivalries because they have quite a few regional ones, but at different points they've carried different weights and different marks of significance. So that's always a tough question. That was my long spiel. I don't know what your answer is. I think we've talked about it before, but I don't remember what your answer is.
Yeah, honestly, I think you kind of laid it out perfectly. It depends on what era of Clemson football you're talking about. At the level of Georgia, I don't think in today's age can be considered a rivalry anymore. We barely play them. True. I know we have home and home series every now and then, or not really home and home. I don't know what this last one was, whatever you call that. So that's one in the past that kind of has fallen off, if you will. The Florida State one, I think, is still very real, for sure, within the conference, just because, it's kind of just been Clemson or Florida State for the most part, outside of, Pitt popping off one year, different teams here and there, but for the most part, it's been, Clemson and Florida State, just from the ACC conference. And then obviously I remember the battles with Georgia Tech. It really depends on what kind of or what era you're talking about. and then personal things like you have with NC State. And personally, I can't stand their coach. I hate NC State less than I hate their coach. Dave Dorn, just like that dude, just rubs me the wrong way. He is so irritating. He really is. I'm sorry for the NC State fans out. Well, not really. I don't care. But he irritates the crap out of me. So I'd say currently probably Florida State. I don't know. I mean, Clemson has so many. It's just, but if I had to pick the most recent one, it'd be Florida State.
Yeah, that might be the pick. I think other than South Carolina, it's the most important team. I think you have to beat. You play every year. You just need to beat them.
And outside of kind of what happened to them last year, that notwithstanding, they are typically the second team in this conference, other than Clemson, that has the highest chance of winning it year in and year out. So recently, I would say Florida State.
Yeah. And it's been nice because you've had a pretty nice run of dominance over them in recent years. I mean they haven't. Mm-hmm. I mean they beat you in 23, but you have to go back to 2014. Before that. So
that's because we probably turned the ball over 12 times in that game. Who knows?
Yeah. So what you're like 8-1? You didn't play in the COVID year. Yeah, that should count as a forfeit, but
it's definitely a forfeit. If anybody remembers Dabo Swinney's comments on that, you should go back and watch it if you haven't.
Yeah,
it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah. So
he made it very well known that they were scared, and we knew it. So, whatever.
Absolutely. See, yeah, always fun to beat. Dusty says that it's always fun to beat Dave. Yeah. Last year was very cathartic. They were helpless for 3 quarters. And there was nothing they could do. I mean, they scored a lot in the fourth, but still won by 24 points, and the game was never close. So.
I can't speak for Dabo, and he'd probably never say it, but I don't think he likes Dave Dorn either.
Yeah. What's that story? Who was it that shared an elevator? Was it Nicole Auerbach or something? Back or whatever?
Yeah.
Who was it that shared a elevator with Dabo and Dave, and they stood on opposite ends of the elevator and didn't speak,
didn't talk or didn't look at each other?
Yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. I don't think they care for each other very much.
No.
And there's not too many coaches that I feel like Dabo has a poor relationship with, but him and Will Muschamp, I don't think they got along very much.
Yeah, no doubt. John Sarin says Dorn hates laptops.
Yes, he does.
He absolutely does. It's the only reason Clemson keeps beating them, because of them dang laptops, man. It's crazy.
Dylan says, asked what position group is the best on the team this year. I would say wide receiver or defensive tackle. I think those are clearly just in terms of the completeness of those rooms. Like I don't have too many questions about either of those groups.
I'd give a slight lean to the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Just because of the depth. Not that the defensive tackle room doesn't have depth. It's just the amount of guys in that wide receiver room. I'd give them kind of the nod, but yeah, D tackle ain't too far behind.
Yeah.
Did you see K-Part, man?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I'm telling you, man. He would be the best player. He'd be the best tackle on.
I ain't gonna say that. All I'm saying, LSU, you better get that O-line figured out week 1. That's all I'm saying, bro. Because these dudes look crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what they've been doing in that weight room, but look here, y'all better get it right. Because
K-Part is a freak, man.
Aaron Nussmeier might be fine right now, but I don't know about after week 1.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I wouldn't want to play him.
No, absolutely not. No.
Tiger Tom with some interesting insights says Texas Tech got a recent cash infusion from a billionaire oil alumnus. Big surprise. To the tune of billions. I can't remember his name. However, this guy sold his very profitable oil company for tens of billions of dollars.
Dang.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I guess that would explain it then.
Yeah.
You think he wants to become a Clemson fan? Bring some of that oil money over here.
Yeah.
See, we ain't got no oil in South Carolina, so
No, there's not really. Can't do too much drilling over here.
You drill, you're just gonna hit water.
Yeah, water. Let's see. Joe says, I've already put it out there on at least 2 other sites. I think the Clemson championship game has Clemson and someone else choose from about 8 other teams to join you guys, including us. Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm not ready to go there. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we think this team has the potential to do it, but potential doesn't mean anything. And we'll give our more in-depth predictions, as in a couple weeks. But I think, wouldn't shock me. I think this team can do it. I think they have the pieces to do it. But yeah, so much has to go right. And they're in, like you said, there are a lot of teams in contention this year. I don't think there's a clear number one. And I think Notre Dame is certainly in that conversation. Of course, the Penn States, the Texases, the Ohio States, Georgia. I think Georgia's the most undervalued team in the country right now. It wouldn't surprise me if they're playing for a national championship this year.
Yeah.
Alabama. I think Georgia and Alabama are kind of being.
Kirby Smart's got the narrative around Georgia right where he wants it right now.
Yeah.
Exactly where he wants it. And I can't believe the media is letting them do it.
Yeah.
Because they BSing. They are not that worried.
Yeah. Georgia is going to, and, they've kind of overhauled their wide receiver room. Gunnar Stockton, I think, he was kind of thrown into the fire, in that playoff game. But, I do think he has some ability, and I think they're going to be better around him than they were last year. At least better around him than they were Carson Beck last year. And so that, I think the biggest thing that was shocking for Georgia last year was just that the offensive line was just.
Yeah, it was definitely the offensive line and the lack of ability to run the football. When you think about
Georgia, the wide receiver room, good God,
they
led the country in drops.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia, but even with that, you would never expect that, and that's a crazy stat. But Georgia's never been like you're not going to look at Georgia for wide receivers. No. They've never been that. No. When you think about Georgia, you think about running backs, and
tight
ends. The fact that tight end, and the fact that they couldn't run the ball last year, that was the biggest surprise I think for everybody. It was like, wait, what? Georgia can't run the football? Since when? Because that's just that's an automatic thing every year. Of course Georgia can run the football. Duh, everybody knows that.
Yep.
So I think that will be corrected this year.
I do too.
I do not think they go 2 years in a row with that kind of abysmal running game. I do not think so. And they got Nate Frazier, who was a freshman last year, coming back this year. I think he had 700-800 yards last year as a true freshman.
I don't know. I don't think it was that much because I still think ETN. I think ETN was still the lead back, but he did show. I think Nate Frazier, he had a great coming out party, of course, against Clemson. But I think there was he was kind of up and down the rest of the year. I don't know if he had that much.
Well, I know ETN missed some time too.
Yeah, ETN did miss some time. We can just pull this up. Let me see how much Georgia player stats, because I don't. 2024. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, he has 671.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, he did lead the team. I couldn't remember if he.
Yeah. So 700 yards, essentially.
Yeah. I mean,
as a freshman, that's
5 yards a carry.
That's pretty good. Yeah, you say they can't run the ball, and then their leading rusher averaged 5 yards a carry. So
Yeah. I mean, which is down for them.
That is down. Yeah, absolutely.
They're six. Their top backs are 6 yards to carry, 6 yards to pop at least.
Yeah.
Most years.
I think they'll be just fine. Stop downplaying it, Kirby Smart. You know you're lying.
Yeah.
Your team's fine.
Let's see. Intelligent Savage says K Klubnik needs to throw for how many yards this season? Would you say for him to be in the running for the Davey O'Brien Award this season? I guess, and by proxy, I mean, if he's in the conversation for the O'Brien, he's in the conversation for the Heisman, potentially the Maxwell, whatever quarterback award you want to name. I said the Heisman is a quarterback award, even though a wide receiver won it a few years ago. But
it is a quarterback award.
It's a quarterback award.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Occasionally they give it to another player.
Yeah. But yeah, to answer your question, how many yards? I mean, he hit 3,600 last year. I think he can absolutely attain that this year. I think. I mean, I don't expect his yardage to be. I think 4,000 is in the cards. I mean, especially if you play more games. I mean, if you do.
Yeah, I think that's what it would take is probably, 4,000 yards, another 35 plus touchdowns.
Yeah.
35, 40 touchdowns. That's probably what it would take.
And I just think, I think his, they're going to be more confident throwing the football than they were last year. I mean, he's going to get opportunities. So, I mean, I think if he just replicates what he does last year, I mean, I think he does have the hype going into this year where statistically it could boost him a little bit in those conversations, even if he is like statistically around the same player, like where it's like he gets that love and is in the conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think even if he just does what he had last year, he had that was a really strong year. I think it's more so for him. It's about where those stats come. Do they come in the bigger games and more of the bigger games? Because obviously Georgia didn't go well. Louisville didn't go well. He was statistically good against South Carolina and Texas, but you still lost those games. So I mean, that's one of those things.
Yeah.
And in SMU, he was statistically good.
I was reading David's comment there. Oh, hold on. My bad. Sorry. If my computer would work, that'd be great. That's pretty funny.
Good point.
Touche. I can't argue with that,
Let's do a couple more and then we'll get on out here, man. We're about to hit an hour and a half. That's you're about to wind it down. That's a new one for us.
Yeah, that's really new.
Yeah, David mentions Boston College. Yeah, they're kind of you have a rivalry trophy, but I mean I don't know of many Clemson fans that really get up for that game in terms of we got to beat BC. I mean, you kind of expect to beat BC. Now, BC is, they've given you one of the more, traumatizing moments in recent Clemson history. When Matt Ryan was there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the choke in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Aaron Kelly dropping that game-winning pass. Yeah. So that's a game that I'd like to forget. But largely, you've been really, dominant over BC. So you don't really think about them too much.
It's not really.
You have a rivalry trophy, so yeah. They count. But
it's not really.
I think they're on the bottom. I think they're like the least important in terms of significance. Like,
yeah, if I had to rank them, they'd probably be at the bottom
yeah,
when it comes to Clemson rivalries or games with little extra juice, because it's just not really a game that you ever even really think about.
no.
No disrespect, but
And now you won't play, and with the elimination of divisions, you don't play them every year anymore.
yeah,
So
you.
Tiger Town says, "Yeah, let's not forget that NC State did us a big favor en route to the 1690 when their field goal kicker missed that. Yeah,
That's
one of
fast.
their big. Yeah, I mean,
Shout out to that kicker.
yeah,
We appreciate that.
That changed the season. And
Yeah.
you went on to win that game in overtime. Like that was, I still think, that was one of the biggest wins in school history. Sneakily, just because.
Oh, how different things could have been.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you need a little luck on your side,
Yeah. Every national champion. I can't think of a single national champion that didn't need luck. That's just you can be as good as you can be as the best team ever, and you're still going to have moments where things could have gone differently. Things could have played out a lot differently. I mean, even like the 28, obviously 2018. Texas A&M was touch and go. Like Kelly Bryant kind of saved you in that game. Obviously Syracuse a few weeks later in Trevor Lawrence's first start, Chase Bryce having to come in and
the hero.
Yeah,
he'll always be remembered for that one throw.
That 4th and 6, man.
4th and 6.
So like you need moments like that. 2019, even 2019 LSU, they beat Auburn by 3 points. Nobody remembers that. They nearly lost.
Everybody thinks they blew everybody out, but they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, they had some moments that they easily things could have gone the other way. I bet the win over Alabama was a shootout. They beat Texas in a shootout earlier in the year. Like they had some games that if a couple plays went differently, you're not talking about that team as one of the best ever. So
and Joe Long makes a good point. That includes injuries.
Yeah,
like Dabo likes to talk about that 2018 defensive line and how lucky they were that they didn't get injured, because the depth behind those guys was not great at that point. Well, it's not that they were bad players; they weren't ready to step in and play significant roles yet. So having health on your side is that plays into that luck that you need. And if Clemson makes a big run this year, we will need luck again. So,
indeed. Let me see if we can get one more. Arthur Moss asked, do you think that Death Valley will get to 100,000 seats? It would be even more intimidating. I doubt it. I don't think it's ever going to get to that point, especially since they're talking about adding more premium seating and club seats. Like that's you got to honestly you got to reduce capacity.
You got to lose seating to get press box and club seating and luxury boxes and all that takes seats away. So. I don't think that'll ever happen.
Yeah, I hope but I hope it's not to the degree that you've seen like Florida State, because I think they severely kind of impacted their atmosphere at Doak with some of the renovations they did. So hope we're a little bit smarter about how we do ours. We learn from their mistakes.
Let's hope so. Just expand the West End Zone box seating somehow. Leave the stands alone.
Let's see. Isaac says, what are the thoughts on where we are in the coaches poll? Let me see if I don't have it pulled up. I saw it earlier today. Didn't really take much note of it because I don't pay attention to the coaches poll.
I think we're 6th.
That sounds about right. I was thinking 6 or 7. Yeah, 6th. Texas. The top 10 is Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, Bama, LSU, Miami. I mean, don't have too many qualms with that top 10. Miami at the top 10 is a little interesting. But other than that, I don't have too many complaints in terms of.
Yeah, I got no issues being at 6.
Yeah,
I got no issues.
Yeah, I'm cool.
One, it's fun to look at, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
2, as long as we take care of business, we'll be just fine.
Yeah. You control your own destiny. I mean,
absolutely. So win the games, and the ranking will take care of itself. But I got no problems with Clemson starting at 6th.
Yeah,
I think that's a good spot for them.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think that's going to do it for us.
Oh, that's interesting. Ruby Ridge says top 5 are the most NIL money spent, I think. That'd be interesting. I don't know if that's true, but
yeah, I feel pretty confident that's not true because there were a couple of those teams that didn't spend as much as you would think.
Yeah.
There are a couple teams behind that top 5 that I think spent. I would say probably spent more. I think LSU. Might have spent the most this season in terms of raw numbers.
Yeah,
they have a really expensive roster. Auburn's roster they're not ranked, but their roster. I mean, the guys they brought in, they had a really expensive transfer.
He's gonna be in trouble if he don't make it work.
Yeah,
Hugh Freeze is in trouble. He better figure it out. Better hope this quarterback is going to be the one he's been waiting on, because I don't know how much longer Auburn fans are going to sit by and get beat up every year.
Yeah, I mean they got some promising players. I mean, obviously the portal class. I mean, we'll see if Jackson Arnold works out, but he's going to have receivers to throw to. When's the last time Auburn's had good, legitimately good receivers? I mean, Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton. Malcolm Simmons, like they've got some guys for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Defensively they have a couple nice pieces. Keldrick Falk is probably going to be a first rounder. Wish he was a Clemson Tiger, but that's the beauty of talking about these teams. You see the guys that Clemson was in on. Like
you see the names, yeah.
But. Yeah, I definitely think they were up there in terms of spending. I mean, obviously these are all secondhand, reports, and you don't truly know. But in terms of that top 5, I wouldn't say that like in order like that. That's who spent the most in NIL. I think there's some teams behind them that actually spent more.
Yeah. Dang, Mike Norvell might as well put his house on the market. Dang, that's tough.
Well, we'll see, man. I don't know what it'll take. I mean, I think you gotta make a bowl game. You can't.
What's his contract look like? Can they afford to fire him? I don't know what year he is in his contract.
I mean, he just signed an extension after the 23 season. So
that's my question. Like, what's that buyout look like?
Ridiculously high is what I don't think Mike Norvell is. I don't think Mike Norvell is getting fired unless they don't make a bowl game. I think 6. If he goes 6-6, I think he's okay.
That's the big decision factor, because now these athletic departments are shelling out money to players. I mentioned Graham Neff talking about this new house settlement is going to cost Clemson $26 million a year. So, you got to think about things when you go to fire a coach like that, because not only do you got to fire him, pay him, then you got to go pay somebody else to be your coach while you're paying him to not be your coach. So, that may change some of how quickly or when people get fired.
Yeah. David Mitt said
it may change some of these contract structures as well, and these buyouts. Schools might start looking at that a little bit harder when they sign people.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. I think it would take another like really horrendous season, I think, for Norvell to get fired. I think they've got too much money tied up in him right now, and I think they'll be better this year. I mean, how much I don't know. I don't think they're 2-10 bad. I think that roster has some issues, but they should be better. And I think, as much as we like to clown on Tommy Castellanos, I think he fits into that Gus Malzahn offense very well. I think he's the perfect quarterback for what they want to run. So it's just we'll see if they can get more from the players around them, and can they get the playmaking on the outside.
I'll tell you one thing though, it ain't gonna be week 1. So good luck, Castellanos.
Yeah, no, I don't think they have some master plan to beat Alabama. They're gonna have to.
He better get with that equipment staff and get his chin strap tightened before that game.
Oh yeah, man. I'm not too high on Florida State's chances in that one, but we'll see. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah,
Florida. We didn't expect Alabama to lose to Vanderbilt last year, so yeah.
That is true. That is true.
All right, y'all. But great show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. A little bit of a slightly abbreviated show. We still end up almost going in an hour 40. So we're about to hit an hour 40. So even our short shows are we yap a lot, but we enjoy chopping it up with y'all. We're, as we get closer and closer to the season, you can really start feeling the anticipation, and there's just a lot to say, a lot to go that's going on. So
absolutely.
Make sure you guys keep tuning in. Make sure you have that notification bell clicked. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Consider subscribing. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps us out as we continue to grow. We grow our audience, so we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate each and every one of you. The 28 people hanging out with us until the very end, and a quick shout out to our channel members, Arthur Moss. Thank you for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. We really appreciate your support. And then David Lowery, thank you, for supporting the channel on a monthly basis as well. So shout out to you two for that. And with that said, you guys have a great rest of your week. We will see you next Thursday, 7 p.m. For another edition of the All In Show. But until then, I'm TPC. He's Jordan. Y'all have a good one.
Later, y'all.
Go Tigers.